It's July. I've got my bushcraft gear with me. I'm bushcrafting in July. Hi folks, I'm Craig Taylor, and as always a huge thanks for joining me here on my YouTube channel, The Bushcraft Padawan. Regular viewers and subscribers will know that 2.5 years ago, wow, I made a commitment to get out into the woods for at least a full day or an overnighter or a combination of the both or more at least once a month, every month for a year. And I managed that throughout 2017, all the way throughout 2018, and we're now in July of 2019. So, in order to keep that commitment up, here I am back out in the woods again. Rather than just come out into the woods and potter about, I always like to come out with a plan in mind, a list of things that I want to try for the first time, practice again, or refine a little more. And this month is no exception. In no particular order, I'd like to have a go at starting a fire using solar ignition. It's quite late in the day here. I'm coming out probably at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and it's a heavily wooded area. So I'm not sure how much sunlight realistically I'm going to get, but I brought out the right kit to try that, so I'm going to give that a try. I want to try carving a mallet as well. I've carved lots of mallets when I've been on courses, but I've always left them in the woodlands when I've finished the course. So because I'm trying to get more into my spoon carving, I want to carve a mallet whilst I'm out here as well. I want to try making a chocolate cake, that's right, on a campfire. And I'm also possibly, probably, maybe going to be joined at some point this afternoon or early evening by a special mystery guest star. Whether special said mystery guest star actually turns up is another thing altogether, but we'll come to that later on in the video if indeed they do make an appearance. So a few things I want to get ticked off today: the mallet, chocolate cake, and also this is my first overnighter since I have had my new hammock, and I think I've cracked the problem of being able to use a sleeping mat inside the hammock, so I'm keen to give that a go. And I've also just recently got hold of a mozzie net as well, because it's summer, it's a damp woodland, there's lots of greenery, there's lots of ferns, there's lots of vegetation. The mozzies and the midges I know in this area are already out in force, so I've brought my new mozzie net out as well to trial that on the hammock. So lots of campcrafty things going on. Let's see how we get on. So without further ado, why don't I stop waffling about what I'm going to do and get on with it. Planning on using a tripod this evening to cook this evening's one-pot meal. And I was just about to start looking round for some nice straight limbs to make each of the legs of the tripod, and it dawned on me where I've actually set up. I'm only a couple of 100 metres at the most from where I spent an overnighter back in the, crikey, it must have been the late autumn, early winter of 2017. I remember it. I actually recorded my no-hole charcloth tin video there that's coming up on the screen now. And I remember, strange the things you remember, isn't it? I remember making a tripod then. And I also remember when I'd finished with it, just standing it upright and resting it behind the back of a tree, just in case. Well, I think one of those just in cases has come around to revisit me, because I'm not too far from where that overnight camp was a couple of years ago. So I'm wandering over there now. There's been a lot of forestry work, you notice there. There's been a lot of forestry work taking place since then. So A, everything looks a bit different, and B, there is of course a chance that the tree I propped it up against now looks like that. So said tree may not exist anymore, and said tripod may be under those trees. But I'm going to wander a little bit further and have a look. I'll let you know how I get on. I'm approaching the area in front of me behind you where that overnighter was. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like this area has been touched, despite all what you can see behind me, the forestry work. From this point onwards, particularly the area I'm looking at where I know I stayed, doesn't look like there's been a single piece of work taking place there. So as long as I can find the tree, which should be dead easy, right, in a forest, as long as I can find the right tree, I'm fairly confident that the tripod will be still there. I'm edging ever closer. As much as it would have been really cool, and I would have looked really, really ninja if I'd been able to find that tripod leaning up against a tree from 2 years ago, it wasn't to be. Can't find it anywhere. I am in the right area, and it's one of those things, I bet I'm just standing at slightly the wrong angle to see them. But anyway, what I am in the area of are some, I was going to say these aren't dead standing, but actually if you watch this, they're stood up. Let's show you the base of this. They're standing, they're looking good, Nick, but actually they're completely separated from the roots at the bottom. But because of the denseness of the trees around them, they appear to be upright. But actually there's 2 or 3 that I can just pick up off the ground, so they'll be perfect. Fashion them down a little bit here, and then take the rest of the other 2 sections back to the area with me and quickly knock up a tripod. If only I'd been able to find the original though. Very, very simple tripod, as you've seen. Didn't put a great deal of time into the lashings and the thrappings at the top. 2 or 3 turns around each upright, 2 or 3 fraps between each upright, and then it's just a bit of bank line dangling down with a very simple no frills toggle at the end, off which I will be hanging my zebra billy can. I've left quite a bit of slack, quite a bit of cordage, so at the top here all of the excess cordage is wound around, and actually if I was to let that all go, the toggle is actually now resting on the floor with a good 6 inches of slack still in the line here. So as I want to raise and lower my pot as I'm cooking, I can just coil that excess cordage around one of these uprights, and as I'm doing that, that toggle is rising, and if I were to uncoil them, it would lower. Really, really simple to do. Biggest time consuming thing with this is finding the uprights in the first place, especially if you go looking for some that you left behind a couple of years ago. Once you've found those, this is a 5-minute job max once you've got the uprights. Very, very simple. You'll see me cooking on this later on in the video. Well, this is a bit odd, folks. I've just been splitting down some silver birch into kindling, and you know what? I'm just not feeling it. I don't mean I'm not feeling the silver birch kindling. Who could fail to feel the silver birch kindling? I'm just not feeling it today. Not feeling it at all. I don't know what feeling it is. I don't know what feeling it means. I don't know what I mean by that. But it almost, I can't put it into words. I could quite happily just pack up now and go home. Nothing's gone wrong. Nothing at all's gone wrong. Everything's, you know, everything's fine. Getting everything ticked off. It's a nice warm day. It's a summer's evening. It's only, let's have a look what time it is. It's 5:30. There's hours and hours of light left. Although I think I can kiss goodbye to my getting a flame by solar ignition. But not to worry. Not to worry. But just not feeling it at all. And it's a strange feeling. Not a strange feeling as in not feeling it. I feel that often for different reasons, in different situations. But I've never felt it when I've been out in the woods doing this sort of thing. You know, this is what I live for. This is what I work for. This is my downtime. This is what I enjoy doing. And I'm not at the minute. Weird. Don't know why. Why don't I put this bloody camera down, stop feeling sorry for myself and get on with get on with the other things that I outlined I wanted to do, and all of the other things that fit in between those, like gathering tinder and fuel and kindling and all of that. Why don't I crack on with that, and we'll see if I can fight through it. All right. So next time you see me, it'll either be in another video because I've sacked this one off and I've gone home, or it'll be a few minutes later in this video, one way or another. Remember that special mystery guest that I talked about earlier on in the video? Well, I've just had a call from him and I'm on my way now to pick them up. And here he is, the boy who needs no introduction, but he's going to do it anyway.
Hi, I'm Finley.
So Finley's my son. I've just been to pick him up. He's been at a birthday party most of the afternoon. It's now 25 to 8 at night, and although it is summer, it is starting to get dark, so we've got a lot to do before we lose light. But before we start cracking on with that and I start running around like a headless chicken, there's a few things that Finley wants to tick off. I talked about the things that I want to get out of the next sort of 24 hours or so, but Finley's got a few things that he wants to tick off as well. What are they?
Bake a chocolate cake in the mug.
Chocolate cake. I mentioned that earlier on, didn't I? That's one of the things that I wanted to take away as well, and unsurprisingly, because he's just a mouth on legs, he also wants to have a go at baking the chocolate cake in a mug. And what else?
Sleeping in the new hammock. Or,
yeah,
your old one.
Yeah, my old hammock, which has now become his new hammock, the Parasilk one, so he's going to have a night in that. For those of you that are regular viewers, you'll know that I've had a cold night in that before. So the overquilts that I've got that we're fashioning into an underquilt, that's one of the things that we're going to do while we're out today. So Finny will not just be sleeping in the hammock, he will have a sleeping bag, but he'll also, I hope, have the underquilt underneath him as well to give him some extra insulation. So without further ado, should we crack on?
Yeah.
Right, let's do it.
I talked earlier on, didn't I, about wanting to use solar ignition. Well, it's 20 to 8 at night, so the sun has well and truly dropped out of any horizon that I can see. So I'm going to go for using some King Alfred cakes, cramp balls, coal fungus, or Daldinia Concentrica to give it its scientific name. I've dropped a couple of pieces of those into a very small, probably too small, bird's nest tinder bundle there. Well, let's see if I can get away with it. And then I've got all the usual grades of tinder, kindling and fuel just out of camera shot. So let's get this fire going. I've dropped a couple of pieces in here. I've dropped one piece, but I broke it into a couple of pieces just to give it a greater surface area. There we go, piece has landed there, wonderful. Let's bring that into shot. I do like using Daldinia Concentrica because it burns for a very long time, enabling me to get my ferro rod attached back onto my belt loop and things like that. So let's get that in that tinder bundle. I'm having a real problem kneeling down at the moment because of my knee operation I've had. Let's get this going. Wow, I think I've skimped. In fact, I know I've skimped on the bird's nest tinder bundle. Let's see if I can get away with it though. Oh, struggling here folks, it's the knee, I can't. No prizes at all for guessing what we're gonna have tonight. It's Craig's classic one pot meal. There's the zebra billy can that I'm going to be cooking it in. To that I'm going to add straight away a pack of super noodles. I'm also going to add a decent handful of pasta shapes as well. All of that is going to go into the pot with some boiling water. That's going to be the thing that takes longest to cook, and that's only about 10 minutes. Once that's cooking off, I'm going to add a cup of soup, and that will become the sauce mixed with anything that comes off the pasta, and the water itself will thicken up, and we've got a chicken and vegetable cup of soup that becomes the sauce. That will go in. Towards the very end, I have some chicken that we've already cooked off at home. I think some leftovers, some roast chicken that we had. I've cut that into some chunks, and that will go in just for the last few minutes. That'll be the protein added to the carbohydrates in there, if I can get the ants off, although they could be the added protein. So we're having a chicken and pasta with a chicken and vegetable sauce, and then we'll look at the chocolate, we'll look at the pudding slightly later on, but let's get the main meal out the way first. Here we've got the finished article, folks. Doesn't look pretty, but it is doing the job. Essentially, as you can just about make out, I think, in the shot here, that black shock cord running up, it's looped over the tree strap hank there, so it's not going anywhere. And exactly so, it's running through either side, left and right of the overquilt, now an underquilt, back up to the knottage. That's a proper hammocking term, that, all the knottage at that end there. Now it's not perfect, and what I did forget to bring out with me, black mark there, are some of those tiny little mini carabiners that you have on key rings and things like that, because they would have been perfect to just loop over the tree strap at either end, and they would have made things a lot neater. But I hope you can actually see the concept there as to what I've done with those black pieces of bungee cord. And Finny, how does it feel?
Good, it's warm.
It's warm?
Yeah.
A few minutes ago I shuffled it around, didn't I, and moved it slightly, and what did you say when I moved it?
It felt really cold.
Yeah,
my back.
yeah. As soon as I exposed any of where he was laying in terms of contact with the hammock, as soon as I exposed that to the air by moving the underquilt, he said he felt the cold immediately. So fingers crossed, we've got a nice little hack there. I'll need to tidy it up. I'll need to think about getting rid of a lot of the excess cordage that's dangling around and flapping around, because that's just going to annoy me and get in the way. But fundamentally, I think we've got away with turning an overquilt into an underquilt there. I guess there's only one way to tell, and that's to ask you that question in the morning.
Yeah.
Just said to Finley, we now have to have the traditional shot of us eating and either genuinely enjoying it or pretending to genuinely enjoy it on camera. I'm not sure what we're going to go for it, because I've not taken a taste. I've not had a taste of this yet, but he's already halfway through his portion. Genuinely enjoying it or pretending to genuinely enjoy it?
Genuinely actually enjoying it.
Genuinely actually enjoying it. Okay, so it's 1 out of 2 so far. I mean, to be honest, it's pasta and chicken. I'm not entirely sure what I could have done wrong here, but I guess I'm going to find out. Christ on a bike, it's hotter than the sun. I think it's nice, just as soon as my taste buds grow back, I'll confirm that. Christ, that's hot. But yeah, all joking aside, it's pasta and chicken out in the woods. What could possibly go wrong? Finley and I have now gorged ourselves on pasta and chicken, but clearly not gorged ourselves enough that we're going to turn down the opportunity to bake a chocolate cake in a mug on a campfire. The full recipe for this is going to be linked to below this video in the YouTube description, so go and check that out. It'll take you through to Paul Kirtley's blog. It's a 2-piece recipe. The first part is some pheasant or I don't know, something in a Dutch oven, but below that there is a recipe for chocolate cake in a mug. So there's the mug. I'm going to oil the inside of the mug with just a little bit. This is olive oil, probably not the best thing to use, but I'm going to use a tiny amount just to grease the base and the edges of this. So that's going to be used in there in a tiny amount. Into that mug, I'm then going to drop the dry ingredients. Now off the top of my head, this was a couple of spoonfuls of hot chocolate powder, of cocoa powder, caster sugar, a few spoonfuls of that, self-raising flour, a few spoonfuls of that as well. You could have also added in there any sort of extract or anything you wanted to put in to flavour it, but I've just gone for sugar, flour, hot chocolate powder. That will go in the mug as well. And then that will be mixed with the contents of this bottle here, which is 1 egg, 2 or 3 tablespoons of milk, I can't remember which, and 1 or 2, again I can't remember how many, of vegetable oil, or was it sunflower oil? I can't remember. Again, the full ingredients and the full instructions are on the list. That will then go in there. It will be mixed into a paste, placed at the edge of the fire in the hot embers, and then gradually turned around so that it, you know, so that the heat from the fire will hopefully cook it all through. That's the theory. Let's see how this goes in practice. It is 21:57 hours, let's call it 10 o'clock at night, shall we? I've just had to wrestle Finlay from his hammock in his sleeping bag to come and try out this chocolate cake that I must admit I've probably not paid the attention to. I should have done. Looks a little bit crispy around the edges, but let's get the expert's opinion.
It's actually really good.
Is it?
Yeah.
Shall I get in there and get amongst it as well?
Yeah. Very spongy.
Yeah, I bet you're not eating the edge bits, but they're not spongy. They're crispy.
You've got one thing.
Yeah, but I don't know what it is. Actually, your handles are quite cold, son. So if I just hold that up, there you can see, there we go. Yes, I know it's burnt around the edges, but actually that's the majority of it is quite... I mean, let's be honest, if you bought it from a cafe, you'd take it back and ask for your money back, wouldn't you? But, to be honest, for making it out in the woods on a campfire, when we've never done it before, and I haven't been paying attention to what I've been doing with it, it ain't so bad. Okay. Definitely want to think about for the future. Definitely want to probably start earlier in the meal, because I must admit it takes a very long time, as it should, of course. You can't rush these things, but I think we didn't start it until 10-15 minutes after we'd finished eating our evening meal. So I think if we'd actually started it probably at the same time, it would have allowed it to cook more slowly and more evenly. But still, having homemade chocolate cake in the woods at 10 o'clock at night, having cooked it on a campfire, can't grumble, right? Alright, that's us done for day one, folks. Most of the things ticked off that we wanted to do. Finney's already got his chocolate cake. He's just about to get his head down in his hammock. You still there, son?
Yeah.
There he is, he's in his hammock, he's absolutely knackered. He's been to a swimming party for at least 2 hours before he came out here. So he's had a full day of it. Not yet done the mallet. I've got the piece of sweet chestnut, I've got my eye on a piece, so that's going to be one of the things that I'm going to do tomorrow morning, along with the pancakes for breakfast, of course. The very dry pancakes, because somebody...
Mum.
forgot to bring out all of the toppings that we were going to have, the raspberries and the honey or whatever the fillings and the toppings that we were going to have. So just dry pancakes for tomorrow morning, but never mind, better than having no pancakes, I guess. That's us. We're turning in. It is 22:11, 10 past 10 at night, so we're going to turn in for the evening and let's see what tomorrow morning brings us. Stay tuned. Going to say night?
Night.
Morning, folks. The morning after the night before. It is 9:16. What time did I go to bed? What time was I still talking to you at? It was about 10 past. It's about 10 past 10, wasn't it? So I guess I fell asleep about 10:30. It's now 9:15. As always, well, for me at least, as always when sleeping out in the woods, it's always a fitful night's sleep, tossing and turning. But I do that at home, to be honest. My wife's always calling me a tosser, so I guess it's something that, you know, I do at home, nothing to do with being out in the woods. What doesn't normally happen at home though is I don't normally go to bed, not put a tarp up, and it starts to rain at 1:05 in the morning. So there I was, 1:05 in the morning, boxer shorts, shoes on, nothing else, head torch, putting a tarp up over Finley's hammock, putting a tarp up over my hammock. It was an interesting exercise, let me tell you, and it wasn't foolproof, I have to say. I missed the ends of both of our hammocks, so the ends of the hammocks are a little bit wet, and of course if the end of a hammock gets wet, because hammocks hang downhill, that water crept in. We're not soaking by any stretch of the imagination. The bottoms of our sleeping bags are slightly damp to the touch. They'll air out in the sun in next to no time. So yeah, I'm glad that I was woken up by the rain starting. Fortunately, I'm sleeping under a really, really dense amount of beautiful sweet chestnut trees with those massive leaves, so they afforded a lot of protection before the rain got to us, and it only started off very light rain, and also the noise of the rain hitting it was almost like an alarm clock to me. So yeah, whilst I'm kicking myself for not putting a tarp up in advance, it wasn't forecast to rain, but it was an interesting exercise in having to put it up half asleep in the middle of the night. Not that I would wish to repeat the exercise again. So it's morning time now, it's 9:17. I'm going to get on with gathering some fuel, making our dry pancakes for breakfast, and then I'll come back to you and talk to you about how the thermarest and in the double layer hammock went. And I'm sure once Finn is back from hunter gathering silver birch twigs, he'll also come on camera and tell you how his night's sleep in a proper hammock went this time round. So catch you soon, but for now it's over to the campfire. As you can see, Finn is back from his travels now. He's come out with a good fistful of silver birch twigs. I must admit we're not in an area where there's a lot of silver birch, most of it is sweet chestnut, but he put it down on the floor and he also said, I've got some
Honeysuckle.
So fair play to him. I'd not sent him out for honeysuckle. I didn't expect him to come back with any. I wasn't even sure if he'd remembered that honeysuckle could be used as a tinder or as a bird's nest bundle, but fair play to the lad. He's come back with some silver birch twigs, which is what I asked him to do, but he's also gone above and beyond and come back with that honeysuckle there. So nice one, Finley, good effort, son. There she blows. That's the first pancake down the range. Shots fired. How's it going, Finley?
Good. It tastes really good as well.
And what have you improvised for a topping?
Jelly baby.
He brought a bag of jelly babies out with him, and as we have no toppings, he's melted a jelly baby on top. And why not, I say, because what else is jelly baby if not just liquid sugar, which is what we were going to put on with honey or some golden syrup. So well done for thinking that, Finley. Has there any left for me?
There's one more.
One more. Is that for me? You never answered the question. That is for me, that one.
Yeah.
Okay, gleaming. So I also get to have a single solitary jelly baby as a topping on my breakfast pancake. Good, I'm glad you're enjoying it. My turn now to have my pancake fest. While I'm doing that, let's talk about... what was I going to talk about? That's right, mozzie nets and sleeping mats in hammocks. Mozzie net first. It worked incredibly well. It was a real cheapie off from eBay, I think it was. I was put onto it by Chris, the guy who's made my hammocks, said try this one out. It was, I think it was £6 or £7, something like that. Worked really, really well. Caught me out a little bit because I put the hammock up and then thought to myself, if the mozzie's put an appearance in, I'll put it up. The mozzie's put an appearance in. So, you know, yesterday evening I put the mozzie net on and realised if you want to use the mozzie net without its own guy, without its own ridge line, which I would prefer to do because it cuts down on the amount of kit and knots and stuff everywhere. If you just want to throw it over your hammock's ridge line, you've got a problem because there are socks at either end of the mozzie net that your hammock ridge line and your continuous loops must push through. Those people that are not hammockers, this probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but if you are, you'll get what I'm talking about. Basically, you need to, if you're going to use the mozzie net with the hammock ridge line, you need to put it all up at the same time together, because what I had to do yesterday was I had to undo one end, thread it through and tie it up again, undo the other end, thread it up and tie it up again. It was about 3 minutes extra work, don't get me wrong, but it's just one of those things that caught me out because I thought I would just throw the mozzie net over my ridge line, it would dangle down and job done. But actually it's more integral than that, which is a really good thing in my opinion. It would have been a really better thing to have realised that in advance though. But hey, every day's a school day. Worked really well. There were loads of mozzies out last night. I could hear them. As soon as I got into bed, I could hear them. I was thinking to myself, oh no, has one got its way in? Has it worked its way in? Which it shouldn't have done because there's a zipper to get in and out that closes all the way down. There's at this either end that I was talking about, these socks. They have a draw lock on them as well, but it wasn't. The mozzie was outside, buzzing around, trying to get in, couldn't get in, and was letting me know by turning its volume up a bit. No mozzies overnight in the bug net, in the hammock, which was fantastic. So that's a real positive. As for the sleeping mat and the hammock itself, an interesting one. The sleeping mat slipped out again during the night, and when I say slipped out, it didn't slip out of the hammock, because it can't, because it's enveloped, right? But it slipped out from underneath me and almost became a wall next to me. The thing is, because it did that, it was really easy for me to just readjust it. It did it 2 or 3 times during the night, which was annoying. If that had been on top of the hammock, if that had not been enveloped in, it would have come out of the sleep. It would come out of the hammock and it would have been on the floor. It would have been nestled in my mozzie net, as it was a few months ago. So, wasn't perfect. It moved around underneath me, but with the benefit of hindsight, I'm not entirely sure how you're ever going to stop that, it moving around underneath you. Interesting though, when I woke up this morning, even before I got out of my hammock, I had a text message from Chris, the guy who makes my hammocks, saying he's watched my recent video and he's noticed that when I lay in my hammock, I lay in it, if you can imagine me laid on my back, my head is over to the right and my feet are over to the left, so I lay on a diagonal, which is exactly how you're supposed to lay in these kinds of hammocks. But he's designed it so that my head should be at the left and my feet should be at the right, so I suspect what he's saying there, that it is cut in some way for that type of lay. Head top left, legs bottom right. That could be whilst I'm having a problem with keeping that sleeping mat underneath me, is because the sleeping mat is conforming to the way that the hammock is designed. My body, good old lump here, I'm not conforming to that and I'm trying to do the exact opposite. So it'd be really interesting next time I come out, it's a continual process, right? Next time I come out to actually orientate the mat that way to begin with, but also more importantly orientate my body that way to begin with as well. So thanks for the tip there, Chris, and well done on spotting that. I wouldn't have thought for a second that it would have been cut like that, but I can see now you've mentioned it, thinking about where those knotty mods are, those draw cords to cinch in the excess. Of course, top left, bottom right, which is how they're orientated. Benefit of hindsight, eh? The benefit of hindsight. So mozzie net, great success. Sleeping mat in hammock, a success. Not as great as I was hoped it would have been, but I think Chris has just revealed to me that missing part of the equation, which is the orientation in which I'm laying. But all in all, I have to say, it was a significantly better night's sleep than I had the last time I was in the Parasilk hammock, where I tried to just put the sleeping mat underneath me and ended up sleeping on the floor in the end. 100% better. And interestingly, I'm not sure why this is, I mentioned that the sleeping mat slipped out from underneath me and almost became a wall next to it. It wasn't uncomfortable at all. In fact, in many ways, it was something nice and rigid to lie up against. But that meant that I hadn't, for some parts of the night, I had nothing underneath me. And I wasn't cold. I wasn't cold in the slightest. I was only in a sleeping bag. I had no bivy bag over me. It is a double layer hammock, so I'm thinking, does the double layer do something? I mean, they're not thick layers, don't get me wrong. It's not like, you know, 2 sheets of foam. Could it be that it was a double layer? Could it be that it was just a really mild night and actually I could have probably slept in the Parasilk hammock with just a sleeping bag and it not bad? I don't know. There are too many variables. It was interesting to know, even though that mat slipped about a little bit, but it wasn't unrecoverable, I wasn't cold at all in the night. What I was in the night was busting for a pee, and my knee, the knee I've had an operation on, this bad boy here, I thought I was at a 10, but it managed to find an 11 on the dial in terms of pain. It was agony at certain points in the night. So I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that that's just because it was only 2.5 weeks ago I had the op. I'm really crossing my fingers and hoping that it's not just a symptom of sleeping in a hammock, which kind of puts my hammock in days to bed before they've even really started. I'm hoping it's just a short-term thing whilst my knee fully recovers. But all in all, it was a good night in the hammock. Finley, what about your night? Do you want to come over here and let us know? Yeah. He's making his way over. This pancake's still red hot. I guess the benefit of a... That's it, just walk in front of the camera. Benefit of a cast iron... Christ, it's hot. Benefit of a cast iron skillet, I guess. So, it was your first night in a proper hammock, as opposed to a bed sheet doubled over with some rope tied at the end. How did you get on?
Yeah, it was really warm, especially with the underquilt. Had a lot of room.
Had a lot of room. You mentioned the underquilt there. If you remember, turn the overquilt into the underquilt. I've got a picture of it coming up on the screen now. It looked really good before he got in it, but once he got in it and I adjusted it and shuffled it around, it really did cocoon him. And because I don't know whether it's a factor of his weight, the size of the hammock for him, the size of the overquilt, but it didn't just come up to the edges of the hammock, as you see most underquilts do. This thing actually came almost over the top of the hammock, and it almost cocooned him in. So he was in a hammock almost in like a chrysalis in a cocoon, which I'm guessing would have kept you even warmer because you had very little air escape or heat escaping from above you because you were cocooned in. So that looks really good, and it needs a lot of tidying up. I think I mentioned that earlier in the video. Needs a lot of tidying up. I forgot my mini carabiners yesterday. I can set those up next time. There's a lot of excess cordage flapping about, which I hate. I can tailor that next time. But I think we're onto something there for not just your hammock, but if I want to use my hammock like that in the future, I think we've come up with a nice modification from an underquilt to an overquilt. But all in all, you had a good night's kit.
Yeah.
I know you did, because you were snoring. Whenever I woke up for a pee, trying to get back to sleep, I was accompanied by him snoring, so I'm sure he had a good night's sleep. But that's all from us. I'm going to finish my breakfast. Last thing we're going to do, I'm just waiting for the fire to burn down just out of shot over there. Last thing I'm going to do before we disappear is make a start on that mallet, hopefully get that finished off. I realised the last time I carved a mallet I used an axe to chop the handle profile out. Didn't bring an axe this weekend, so I'm just going to use my Garberg and probably have to just take it off in thinner slivers. But join me in a few seconds time and let's talk through that mallet then. Dry plain pancakes.
Mum's fault.
Mum's fault, he says. Hammer time, or more accurately, mallet time. Things I'm going to use to hopefully construct this mallet. Piece of sweet chestnut here. I used to think it's sweet chestnut. It was in a pile of other sweet chestnut, but I'm looking at the bark markings. They look quite white poplary, those diamonds. But I'm pretty sure it's sweet chestnut, just because of the area that I know it was taken from is rife with it. diameter. Probably about thumb diameter there. 3 inches maybe. It's never 8 inches, but probably about 2 to 3 inches diameter of the wood there. Nice and straight. Very few obvious knots in it, if any at all. That's what I'm starting with. I'm going to use a Barco Laplander saw. I'm going to use my Moragarberg, and quite ironically, it's always the irony of this, I'm going to use a mallet to create a mallet. I know, I get the irony of it. Not really a mallet, is it? It's just a straight piece of fairly hefty solid wood. I'm going to use that to craft my hopefully more comfortable, aesthetically pleasing mallet. So without further ado, let me talk you through this. It's not going to be a step by step because I am by no means an expert in this. I'm just going to talk you through what I'm doing. If you know better, if you do it slightly differently, other than you, I would use an axe, Craig. I know that, but I didn't bring an axe with me purposefully. I want to try doing it with a knife. But if you've got a different way of doing it, do let me know in the comments below. But this is the way that I'm going to go about it. First things first, I'm going to decide which end is going to be my handle and which end is going to be the business end. That end was already exposed to the elements, so I suspect it's seasoned slightly more, slightly harder. That end, as you can see by the difference in just in the cross section, in the cut and the colouring, that was only sawn off less than 24 hours ago when I harvested this from a log pile. So this will be to some degree slightly softer, therefore it would probably not be up to being the mallet end. It would probably also be easier to work with my Moragarberg on this end. So this is going to be the handle and this is going to be the business end. Once I know which end my handle is going to be, I'm going to use my Barco Laplander to saw all the way round into the wood. This is going to be a cross cut, if you like. If you can imagine spoon carving where you put a cross cut in, that's what I'm doing here. I'm putting a cross cut in all the way around. I'm going to try desperately to keep it an even depth all the way around. Whenever I've tried that in the past, I've failed miserably, but I'm going to try and keep it an equal depth in all the way around the circumference of the handle end of this piece of sweet chestnut. I've now got my line sawn in, my cut sawn in, all the way around the circumference of this. It's really difficult, at least I find it very difficult to gauge what the depth is all the way around. I mean, I can put my saw blade in at any one point, pull it out, and you know, that's probably this area here where my saw blade in is at the moment. If you see that, you've got an idea what the depth of that is. If I pull that out, I would say I'm just a fraction over halfway the depth of this saw blade, but that's really hard to be able to determine all the way around. So all I'm doing is I'm going around the wood, sawing into it, and I must admit I'm kind of getting a sense as to where there are some higher spots than others. This area here feels slightly higher, so I've just paid a bit more attention to that section there. I think the trick here, like with most things, is you can always take more off, you can't add it back on. So I would rather saw this too shallow, and once I've batoned down with my knife I need to saw a little further and repeat the process, than saw too deep into it and essentially weaken the handle and destroy the integrity of the whole mallet, if you like. So I think less is more on this occasion. There's the cut all the way around. That essentially is going to be my handle. I'm now going to baton down from this freshly cut end to that handle cut. But to do that I'm going to need to rest this log club end down, and if you look at the angle of that cut, it's not flat by any stretch, and that means that when I'm batoning, this is going to be rattling all over the place. So I'm quite happy to lose a fraction off the top of that. If I can make a cut in that now with my Barco, make it a cleaner cut, make it a more level cut, it's going to mean that this is going to rattle around less. It will take me less time to baton it, and it will be much safer when I baton it, more importantly. So back to the Barco Laplander. It's one thing after another this morning. Camera batteries just ran out, so fortunately I've brought my Steadicam, although it's probably not coming across, that actually is wobbling all over the place. I've brought my Steadicam guy with me with my phone.
So from now on the rest of the video is going to be quite short and sharp because Finn is recording it on my phone, but I've made that end nice and neat. It's down onto the log. I'm now going to baton from the handle end into these cuts here that I've made to start to trim away some of the bulk of this to make a handle. So hopefully what you can see I'm doing here, if Finn's got it in shot, is I'm just batoning down, and that was a good example there. Hopefully you can see that they've now stopped those cuts that I'm making, taking the bark off. They're stopping at the stop cut that I put in. Now with an axe I could probably be a bit more aggressive with this, but actually, like I said a few seconds ago, I can take more off, I can add it back on. And as I've never done this before, well, I have done this before should I say, but it's been a while ago, I'd rather err on the side of caution and take slightly less off each time than ruin it. So if we just look at that now, you can see hopefully the stop cut there, you can see that nothing has gone past that stop cut, everything has gone up to and stopped at that stop cut. And I just need to keep repeating that. What I need to be really mindful of is though how deep this stop cut is. Not much deeper than what you can see there, so maybe I need to trim this down a little more, because if I carry on batoning down here and that stop cut isn't deep enough, I'll be batoning into the club part of it, and I don't want to do that. So a little bit more sawing, a little bit more batoning, a little bit more sawing, a little bit more batoning, but we're going to get there. Here's a bird's eye view down the handle of this now. If we close in, you can see that sudden stop there is the stop cut I keep talking about. You can actually see if we look closely, there's a little bit further to go. If anything, I think I've made this stop cut a little bit too deep, because that handle's starting to feel about the right circumference now for me to grip comfortably. Probably a little bit more to take off, but I think I've made the stop cut a little bit too deep, but hey, you live and learn. And if we just look down the cross section there, what I'm trying to do now, I've stopped the batoning. What I'm doing now is just with the knife, I'm working, let me try and show you this. I won't actually use the knife, I'll just orientate it. I'm definitely not holding it between my feet when I do this either, it's just for the purpose of the camera. I'm working from about halfway down the handle into the stop cut with my knife to smooth and round this part off, and then I plan to turn it round. You know where I'm going with this now, and work halfway down the handle into the log to smooth the top or bottom end depending on your orientation off. So these kind of acute angles here that I think you can probably see where my knife tip is, start to trim those down with the knife like that. And then roughly when it's there, when it's relatively smooth, circular, and the right diameter, right circumference for me to grip, we should be there. I hate recording from a phone, it shows up every wobble in my hands, but needs must, I guess. There we have it, folks. There's the original piece of sweet chestnut, or so I think. There's all the shavings. There's the Barco Lapland I used to produce the stop cut into there. And there's the Moragarberg that I used to, but first of all, baton down to that stop cut. And as you can see, there's still some stop cut showing, so I think I'm a little bit deep. There's a cross section. I've left it a little thinner at this end and a little thicker at that end, only marginally. You probably can't even pick it up, but I can feel it, I can sense that difference, just because I want clearly the weak point in this is where the handle enters the mallet head, so I want that to be slightly thicker. Although you could argue that if my stop cut is deeper, then that extra thickness is doing nothing, but let's not argue about that. So there we have it. I'll take that home now, and that shall hopefully be another spare to me towards doing a little bit more spoon carving at home.
We are fast approaching, and when I say fast approaching, I don't mean very fast because my knee is screaming at me, but we are approaching at variable speeds our car, so that'd be a good idea just to run over the day, see if I got everything out of it I wanted to, more importantly see if Finney got everything out of it he wanted to. Sleeping mat
in the hammock, yeah, check. Need to make a little tweak next time in terms of my orientation. Mozzie net, fantastic. Need to make a little tweak next time in terms of the order in which I put it up and make a more integral part of the actual hammock setup. Pancakes, fine. Need to make a little tweak next time. I'll take responsibility for bringing the pancake toppings out. What else? The mallet, fine. Again, little tweak next time. Don't saw as deep for that initial stop cut. I can always add another one later, but I can't take it back out again. Having said that, I still think it's absolutely functional and safe what I've built. Just a little tweak for next time. So I think that's everything covered off that I wanted to get out of it. Every single thing I think has been achieved, but, and I quite like this but there's an area for improvement next time, which for me is what it's all about. It's coming out, it's having a go, it's having fun, it's hopefully getting a sense of satisfaction and completion out of it, but more so it's that sense of, but I can do it better next time, because that's, for me, that's what keeps me coming out. That's enough for me. What about the young man here?
Yeah, I found it good. Completed all the stuff I wanted to.
What did you do differently about pancakes?
Bring the stuff out.
What did you do differently about the hammock?
Look at the weather forecast.
Yeah, look at the weather forecast. That's on me, to be honest, not you, about putting the tarp up before it started to rain, not once it had started to rain. But yeah, that's on me, not you.
It was really warm as well. So.
Yeah, he really enjoyed it. He really enjoyed his night in the hammock. So I expect the next time we come out, whether it's hammocking time or not, he'll be wanting to come out. And I think he's an established hammock convert already at an early age. Me, the jury's still out, but I enjoyed it. I've invested some time and effort and money into the whole hammocking research and buying stuff, so definitely not a dead in the water for me. Fully anticipate that I'm going to be probably going to try and do 50-50 with my on the grounds versus swinging from the trees moving forward. Anything else to add?
The chocolate cake, keep an eye on it. But
Oh, good point, the chocolate cake. Yeah, you didn't see this, but off camera, the chocolate cake is going to need nothing short of a direct subsurface thermonuclear strike to get some of what's been baked onto the side of the mug off. So I've got my hands full when I got home. So yeah, again, that's on me as well. Pay a closer eye on the chocolate cake cooking. I think that's time for us to sign off now. Up in the top left hand corner of your screen, you'll see a link through to one of my more recent videos where I was talking about whether you're a social or antisocial bushcrafter. Why not pop along there if you've not already taken a look at that, and let me know whether you fall into the social or the antisocial camp, or let's call it the solo bushcrafters camp. It's a goodbye from me, and it's a goodbye from
Finley.
See you in the next video, folks. Cheers.